I remember it as if it were yesterday, 1893. I'm standing here in front of the majestic Niagara Falls, captivated by its indescribable beauty. Back then, I was awestruck by the power and strength bestowed upon us by Mother Nature. Gazing into swirling water currents, I could see the future. A world where billions of people live in bright and warm homes, and factories run on clean and sustainable energy. Just a year later, right here in the same spot, 10 alternating current generators of my design were installed. They became the foundation for the world's first large-scale hydroelectric power station. Niagara Falls Power Station No. 1 demonstrated to the world that water could be a source of inexhaustible energy, harnessing the power of nature for the benefit of humanity. Back then, my gift of foreseeing the future helped make a technological revolution and improve the lives of generations. However, today, standing in the same place and watching the same swirling currents, I see something entirely different. I see a huge danger looming over the entire planet. What's about to happen in the near future will be a matter of life and death, not just for humanity, but for you personally, my dear friend. In this video address, I want to warn everyone who can hear and tell them how they can save their lives.
The Colorado River supplies water to 7 U.S. states. In the Colorado River Basin, a mega drought has been ongoing for over 20 years, the worst in 1,200 years. This issue has now affected a minimum of 40 million people. The overall water supply is diminishing very rapidly. Experts warn that this could lead to the formation of a dead basin. There are no significant storms on the horizon, so it can be said with confidence that we will end the year dry and continue this ongoing drought. But already in January 2024, a state of emergency was declared in San Diego and Ventura due to flooding. People fled for safety. Cars were swept away by water streams. On February 5th, a record amount of precipitation fell. 38 million people in California and neighboring Arizona were threatened by floods. Destructive mudslides occurred. Hurricane-force winds reached speeds of 128 kilometers per hour. Within 2 days, 49% of the annual average precipitation fell. The reservoirs overflowed. After the flooding, stunned residents breaking down in tears pulled soggy and muddy furniture from their homes. That day became the city's 4th wettest day in 175 years. Overall, the total number of climate anomalies in the USA over the last decade is growing exponentially.
The information has reached me that as a result of the February 2024 floods, the roads in Los Angeles turned into rivers. The lives of 38 million people in California and neighboring Arizona were at risk. Can you imagine this, dear descendants? California, the driest state, suddenly facing floods. I delved deeper. It turns out this isn't an isolated incident. Climate anomalies in America in recent years are too many to list. The situation is aggravating right before your eyes. It seems you're choosing not to see it. Some of you might wonder, how are things in the rest of the world, say in Europe? Is this climate chaos happening only here?
Europe has been suffering from a serious drought for several years. The situation reached a critical point in the summer of 2022, when the most powerful drought in the last 500 years hit Europe. The abnormal heat in European Union countries was compared to the onset of an apocalypse. France was fighting extensive forest fires, while in Switzerland, a pass that had been covered in ice for 2,000 years melted. According to calculations, the total damage to EU countries from extreme weather amounted to $20 billion. By 2023, the situation had gotten even worse. Almost every river in the European Union had dried up to some extent. In the Spanish region of Catalonia, a state of emergency was declared as the area faced the most severe drought in its history. Residents were banned from washing cars and filling up swimming pools. The abnormal heat led to crop failure, resulting in rising prices for all products, including meat. The drought exacerbated the energy crisis in Europe. Due to low water levels, most hydroelectric power plants in France and Italy significantly reduced their electricity generation. In France, the water became so warm that it was unsuitable for cooling nuclear power plants. Europe was like bacon in a frying pan. What's happening now? In 2024, Europe is recovering from heavy rains that hit several countries at once. Storms and torrential rains struck the regions of northern Europe in the first days of January 2024, with significant flooding recorded in the UK and northern France. Streets in Belgium, Germany, the Netherlands, and several cities in Austria were submerged. The material damage from the floods could amount to billions of euros, while the environmental impact is difficult to assess.
One well-known eco-activist wrote, "Deadly heat waves, floods, storms, wildfires, droughts, crop failures. This is not the new normal. We're at the very beginning of a climate and ecological emergency, and extreme weather events will only become more and more frequent." It is pointless to argue with this statement. Indeed, climate change isn't limited to USA and Europe. It's happening all over the world. You are at the brink of global catastrophes. What causes them and how to stop them, you'll find out later. But for now, it's crucial to understand what humanity needs the most in such a situation. It is well known that a person can survive without food for about 30 days, sometimes even longer, but without water, only 3 to 5 days. In rare cases, up to 8 days.
Researchers have found that more than half of the world's largest lakes and reservoirs now contain less water than they did 3 decades ago. Less water in lakes and rivers means less water for human consumption, as well as for irrigation and industrial use. Low water levels complicate electricity generation. Floods that follow prolonged droughts do not alleviate the situation. Water cannot be absorbed into dry soil. It flows as if sliding on the ice, sweeping away everything in its path, causing floods, mudslides, and landslides. By the most conservative estimates, over 40% of the world's population will be living in regions facing water scarcity by 2030. In major cities, water will be rationed, and its quality will steadily deteriorate. Epidemics will resurge, bringing back medieval diseases. The water crisis will lead to food shortages, triggering large-scale population migrations. Governments will collapse like houses of cards. Regions with water resources will close off within borders unrelated to national boundaries.
Some countries are drowning, while others are drying up. And some go up from drying up to drowning. The situation with water is truly critical. As you understand, it's getting more acute with each passing year. This is due to the sharp deterioration of the climate, environmental pollution, and the growing world population. So what can be done? Before you learn the solution to this problem, let's see what science, business, and technology have to offer.
The Great Lakes of America. They contain about 18% of the world's supply of fresh water. Some experts and officials have floated the idea of moving water from the Great Lakes to the Colorado River. In other words, drying up the Great Lakes. However, this plan faces 3 main problems. First, implementing it would require an uphill pipeline approximately 1,600 kilometers long, longer than any other water pipeline ever built. How much would that cost? Secondly, pipes carrying drinking water need regular maintenance. Without it, harmful bacteria and viruses proliferate in the pipeline. 80% of all diseases worldwide are related to unsatisfactory drinking water quality and violations of standards for water supply, sanitation, and hygiene. Thirdly, continuous leak detection and repairs are necessary. In North America, due to leaks in the water supply system, 20 to 50% of all fresh water is lost. In Jackson, the capital of Mississippi, with a population of around 170,000, repairing the water supply system could cost between $1 to $2 billion, whereas nationwide expenses for repairing the water supply system will exceed $1 trillion. Around 70% of fresh water on Earth is contained in glaciers, with almost all of it located in Antarctica. Starting from the end of the 19th century, small icebergs were attempted to be towed from the southern shores of Chile to the north. In the 20th century, this idea was actively pursued by the oceanographer John Isaacs. In 1949, at a seminar at the Scripps Institute of Oceanography, he presented a project to tow Antarctic icebergs to the Southern California region. Isaacs planned to tow a block weighing 8 billion tons to San Diego in 200 days. Relying heavily on favorable ocean currents, he planned to use 6 ocean tugs with a total power of 80,000 horsepower. For many years, Isaacs presented new proposals for this project, but it never progressed beyond discussions. To this day, no one has figured out how to preserve the ice during towing in the warm ocean. Some experts have calculated that a healthy tree requires nearly 42,000 liters of water per year. They argue that unnecessary trees consume a lot of water, meaning less water enters our groundwater. These specialists propose cutting down half of the trees in the national forests to release more water. But there's a problem. Forests are the foundation of Earth's ecosystems. If we remove forests, the planet will perish. It's like trying to get rid of dandruff by removing the head. 97% of all the water in the world is found in seas and oceans. To obtain drinking water from them, salt needs to be removed and impurities filtered out. The idea seems simple and straightforward, but there are 2 problems with its widespread application. The first problem is that for every gallon of desalinated water, about 2 gallons of hypersaline water remain. Almost always, this water is discharged back into the ocean. In areas where this water is discharged, marine life perishes. With widespread application, this would lead to the death of all marine life in the ocean. The second problem is the pipeline. Thousands of kilometers of new pipes from the ocean to consumers with all the ensuing consequences. Furthermore, there is a possibility that strong earthquakes near the San Andreas Fault could damage the pipelines. This would lead to a disaster, leaving a huge number of people without a primary source of water.
These are the main methods that your specialists offer today for addressing the water scarcity issue. As we can see, there's no perfect solution. Unfortunately, that's not all the difficulties. It's time to talk about second water-related problem. Yes, it's the second global water issue humanity is facing. Even if you obtain water from icebergs or the Great Lakes, every liter of this water will contain around 240,000 particles of micro and nanoplastics.
Microplastic pollution has affected the entire planet. Scientists have discovered microplastics in clouds, groundwater, Greenland and Antarctic glaciers, on the summit of Everest, and in the deepest part of the ocean, the Mariana Trench. The entire depth of the ocean is literally permeated with microplastics. It has been found in every sample of ocean water.
It's really concerning that we're finding microplastics in every sample, from coastal areas to the most remote regions of the ocean.
According to the United Nations estimates, nowadays the number of tiny microplastic particles exceeds the number of stars in our galaxy, and it's already everywhere, in the air, water, and soil. Today, up to 25 million tons of micro and nanoplastics per year are transported for thousands of kilometers by oceanic air, snow, sea spray, and fog, while crossing countries, continents, and oceans. Microplastics in the environment are increasing, but no effective measures are being taken to remove them. Meanwhile, microplastics have already been found in the human body, in the blood, heart, lungs, brain, placenta, and even in breast milk.
From what I gather, right now, you have plastic, microplastic, and nanoplastics everywhere, all over the planet. Unfortunately, science of your time hasn't found effective ways to clean the biosphere from this scourge. Meanwhile, The amount of plastic in the ocean increases by 8 to 10 million tons every year. The volume of such emissions increases with a growing population. What implications does this have for you amid the disasters that have commenced worldwide, and how should it be addressed? First and foremost, it's important to understand what's really happening with the climate and why.
Our planet is bursting at the seams due to the anthropogenic factor and the geodynamic activation of its depths. Earthquakes, massive floods, raging wildfires, relentless droughts, landslides, cyclones, and storms have struck worldwide, claiming the lives of tens of thousands of people and forcing hundreds of thousands to leave their homes. Today, this affects everyone. There are no longer any safe places on Earth. The changes on the planet that we are witnessing now, a sharp rise in temperatures and melting glaciers, increased volcanic activity, a rise in the number and strength of earthquakes, the drift of the magnetic poles, and the weakening of the magnetic field, occur every 12,000 years due to the influence of external cosmic processes. As a result of this influence, the core of our planet heats up, triggering a chain reaction of catastrophic changes across the Earth. This is confirmed by the study of geochronology of quaternary deposits, research on ice cores, the discovered Uccello horizon, and much more. In the previous cycle, 12,000 years ago, global temperatures soared by a whopping 15 degrees Celsius. Over the course of several decades, most glaciers melted. Catastrophic floods, tsunamis, and earthquakes began. Some areas of the Earth were completely submerged underwater due to the intense rise in sea levels. However, after this, there was an equally abrupt cooling. During each cycle, there was a drift of the poles. The Earth's magnetic field weakened by 8 to 10 times. The weakening of the magnetic field led to an increase in cosmic radiation. Volcanic eruptions affected every corner of the world. 12,000 years ago, catastrophes led to the mass extinction of megafauna and a sharp decline in the human population. But that was a small cycle. Now, we are entering a larger one, which is much more powerful.
The fact that you're watching this film right now suggests that our planet made it through the previous climate cycles relatively smoothly. It didn't perish, just as it didn't in all the previous cycles since its formation. Climate stabilization has always been ensured by the ocean. The ocean used to dissipate heat from the Earth's interior into space. The current cycle could be the last one because of your anthropogenic influence. Do you understand what you have done? In 100% of water samples taken at different depths, there was micro and nanoplastic present. As a result, the ocean has stopped performing its main function. Instead of being an air conditioner, it has turned into a heater. Now, heat remains at the Earth's surface. This triggers the increase in the number and intensity of disasters. Don't you see that? Or you don't want to? Then listen to what scientists say about it.
We started doing something that no one had ever thought of before, producing synthetic hydrocarbons that we know as a plastic. Before us, there was no plastic in the ocean. And starting from the 1950s, all the plastic produced on the planet sooner or later ended up in the ocean. Since plastic does not biodegrade and decompose in the environment, it stays as it is, and significant portion of it simply breaks down into tiny particles, known as the micro and nanoplastics. These particles permeate the entire depth of the ocean, and practically every drop of the ocean contains nanoplastic particles. Due to its specific composition, microplastics have a unique property: they disrupt the ocean's heat conductivity. So, the cause of a disruption of the ocean's function is the anthropogenic factor, and more specifically, it is the plastic that we have created, and now it is everywhere in the ocean. And instead of removing heat, the ocean has become like a thick blanket for our planet. And the planet is exactly what needs to be cooled.
Anomalous ocean warming? What are the implications for us? As the temperature of the water in the world ocean rises, there is intensified evaporation of moisture. As it evaporates, it takes away heat energy from the ocean. When the moist air reaches colder layers of the atmosphere, the water vapor condenses. That is, it turns back into water, forming clouds and eventually rain. Since there is more moisture in the atmosphere, rains turn into anomalous downpours. Paradox. If there is more water in the atmosphere, why is half of the globe suffering from droughts? The reason is that due to ocean warming, the atmosphere also heats up. The warmer the air, the more moisture it can hold. Moisture evaporates and remains trapped in the atmosphere for a long time. Water does not return to the Earth as precipitation for an extended period of time, leading to prolonged droughts. Eventually, when the atmosphere becomes saturated with moisture to the point where it can no longer hold it, heavy rainfall occurs. This is the reason for the simultaneous increase in extreme droughts and floods worldwide. It is precisely the warm ocean and the moist, warm atmosphere that increase the destructive power of hurricanes. The water condensing in the atmosphere releases all the accumulated heat back into the air, which was absorbed during evaporation. This heat becomes the primary source of energy for tropical cyclones. When wind, water, and heat come together, they acquire terrifying and devastating power. And we are witnessing examples of such anomalous occurrences right now. Freddie became the first tropical cyclone in the southern hemisphere to undergo 7 separate rounds of rapid intensification.
Hurricane Otis shocked climatologists when in less than 12 hours it intensified from a regular tropical storm into a Category 5 hurricane, the highest category. In other words, it went up 5 levels in just half a day. This has never been observed before.
With the current trend of ocean warming, there will soon be no safe places left on Earth. Droughts, floods, and hurricanes in the coming years have the potential to make life on the planet unbearable.
To help you better understand how this works, let me explain the mechanism of climate destabilization. It's very simple. Even a child can grasp it. So, the Earth's interior is heated from the core more intensely due to anthropogenic factors. The heating of the core is caused by external cosmic influence, to which the planet is exposed every 12,000 years. The increasing intensity of hurricanes, rainfall, and droughts is just the beginning. The Earth will start experiencing direct exposure to cosmic rays by the end of 2024. The ocean you have polluted cannot cope with heat dissipation, thus the escalation of disasters is ahead of schedule. On such a scale, this is happening for the first time in the entire life of the planet. If the situation with the ocean does not improve, disasters will wipe out all life from the face of the Earth. You have only a few years left before reaching the point of no return. What happens next? According to the calculations of your scientists, there is a high probability that in 2036, due to overheating of the Earth's interior, the mantle could melt, causing a breakthrough in the Mariana Trench. Water will rush through into the Earth's interior, which could lead to an explosion, causing the Earth to lose its atmosphere and perish. And now, the main thing. You have the opportunity to stop the disasters and prevent the planet's demise. The implementation of atmospheric water generators will buy time to solve this critical task. Look at what the inventors of this technology have to say about it.
How does atmospheric water generation technology work?
And water evaporates every day from all our oceans, seas, and lakes. When it goes to a certain height above a certain point, it goes below dew point and becomes a cloud. And then, of course, the wind blows that cloud. When it comes below the dew point, it becomes rain and changes state again.
We're not reinventing the wheel, all right? At the moment, there's two, would you consider the mix, two methods really of obtaining water from the air. One is through the use of a medium, so like a mesh or a desiccant that you put through the air, and it basically either absorbs it or forces the condensation through that. And the other one is basically lowering the temperature of the air to the dew point so that the water naturally condenses.
The technology there can create water anywhere because the technology is used in such a way heating and cooling creates condensation. So whether it's in Devil's Valley in Nevada or in the Sahara Desert, we can still make water there. So we can make water anywhere on the planet.
The way the machine is designed, the air that comes into the machine is filtered to start with. Then the moisture is condensed out of the moisture that's in the air. So the only thing that the machine is seeking is the H2O molecule, which is smaller than a piece of microplastic. The filtration strips everything off. Then, yet again, when it goes into the tank, before it comes out to the consumer or the people who use the water, it goes through another large section of carbon filtration laced with silver, so that it not only doesn't impede the growth of bacteria, but it strips off anything else that's in the water. It's an incredible process.
Can atmospheric water generation technology cause harm to the environment or disrupt the atmospheric balance?
It will have some environmental impact, a positive impact, because when we process ambient air, we filter it from dirty stuff as well. For example, smog and flue gases and all, and sand and everything that flies around in the air, really. And so that's one impact we have. When it comes to the water content in ambient air or in the atmosphere, as I mentioned previously, there's absolutely no way of extracting or disturbing the natural balance of the atmosphere, because it's simply too big and it's too powerful. And even if we would create an awesome, enormous machine, constantly sucking water out of the atmosphere, it would immediately, with its other hand, snatching water back from, the Pacific or the nearest water.
Agree. It is a big thing when you are using atmospheric water generator in each home. Then you will not ever use these plastic bottles. So by using the atmospheric water generator, we are seeing that we will solve the water issue. We will reduce the footprint that is from the plastic industry. We will reduce the carbon footprint from the transportation, and we will help the environment to return to the natural cycle.
Some scientists calculated that for every degree of increase in the atmosphere, its water content increases by about 7% or something like that. So there's absolutely no worry that we will ever run out of water in the atmosphere. So it's a completely super sustainable system, and it's much faster than groundwater extraction, for example, because that takes years to refill because the water has to trickle down. But when it comes to the atmosphere, it can, the atmosphere is in immediate contact with, the Earth's surface, so it can extract any water it likes.
Atmospheric water generators extract excess moisture from the atmosphere, which accumulates due to the rising temperatures on the planet. During the air intake process, pollutants are filtered out, resulting in cleaner air. AWG technology is environmentally friendly and beneficial for the planet. Can AWG technology produce water in the required amount?
Even if 8 billion people take 100 liters of water from the moisture, there will be enough evaporation to refill that. And this is what we should be looking to doing. And it is clean, right? And it is available everywhere to everyone. And so I think suddenly the world has woken up to this alternate source.
I designed and developed the technology to a place where I can build an atmospheric water generator that could produce over 100,000 liters a day, 200,000 liters a day. It's not difficult anymore. You just have to think about it long enough. So my goal with this technology is to allow people to be able to live wherever they would like to live and never have to worry about water scarcity. Because as long as you can breathe, as long as you're pulling in air, there is moisture in that air.
We've created larger systems to where if you wanted to, you can make thousands of gallons per day, but you're just using that much more power, where it comes a conversation of, okay, do we want to have a higher CapEx for buying more machines or a higher OpEx to keep them running?
Atmospheric water generators can produce any required amount of water, including for industrial needs.
It seems every country are running their natural water sources to the max right now, and everybody has their industries and economies sort of adapted to the water table that they had 20, 30 years ago. And now it's shifted for everyone, basically.
But actually, the biggest problem with water is the lack of water for irrigation. Around 70% is used for growing crops, is used for food production, right? And that is a massive impact. If you can't provide water for those industries, forget about being able to take a shower. You won't be able to eat. You won't be able to generate enough food for your industries. And I think that's going to have a very severe impact in the lives of a lot of people in developed countries.
I'm sure now in California, so many farmers are contemplating suicide because of their livelihood just being gone because water is not available, right? So extreme conditions like that will one way motivate people to make a change. Because if I went to a farmer who's lost his livelihood in California and say, hey, listen, why don't I help you build a greenhouse? Do hydroponics and I'll give you water from air. And you should be able to rebuild your business.
What are the prospects for the application of AWG units? AWG technology can revolutionize the existing principles of agriculture and become a necessary element in almost all production cycles. How will AWG technology help people in the period of global climate change?
So if we're talking about water scarcity, or if somebody's passion may be in something like climate change, or even for how can we better take care of people in a disaster scenario? You think about a hurricane coming through and causing an unexpected issue in whichever area that may be. Typically, hurricanes occur in very warm, very humid environments. Well, whenever you have a disrupted supply chain and water logistics, you need to have an immediate answer ready to go. And that's what some of our options are able to provide. That you can either with your own power source or with some built-in options that we've created as well, that you can turn on a machine, start making water, and have the most important life source available at the ready on demand. And that is something that we absolutely have taken to heart a lot and developed quite a few options for. But AWG has a massive place in disaster relief and emergency aid.
Atmospheric water generators not only can meet people's needs for fresh water, but also ensure water security during periods of global climate change. What are the prospects for the development of AWG units?
Well, as I say, it's an emerging technology. It's not bottomed out. The industry will, depending on political change, depending on political barriers, the industry will grow over the next 15 years to an important part of our society. It will happen without a doubt. You know, there's no stopping it.
And instead of working separately and trying to undermine each other, we need to work together because it's a global problem. And that's just one of the problems that we have today is we tend to work more towards the profit instead of the human profit. And that's one thing I concentrate on. I concentrate on the human profit. And whatever years I have left in my life, that's what I do.
AWG being air water generators. And you're right, it wasn't talked about till even as late as last year, right? People were still saying, hey, what does that mean? Really, are you saying you can get water from air? And suddenly the whole world has woken up to this saying, wow, this is a non-depletable source.
So dear descendants, you have been presented with a technology that will allow you to launch a planetary air conditioner. At first glance, the idea might seem quite unexpected. Let's figure out what conditions are necessary to activate it at full power.
By extracting moisture from the air, we stimulate evaporation. Along with evaporation, micro and nanoplastics rise from the surface. Atmospheric water generators filter the water and remove all impurities from it. With mass usage, atmospheric water generators become an artificial filter integrated into the water cycle on the planet. After a few years of active use of atmospheric water generators, the ocean and atmosphere will be significantly cleaner. The ocean will once again begin to release heat into the atmosphere, and from there, it will dissipate into space. This will mitigate the destructive effects of disasters. Additionally, with intense evaporation, the ocean cools down. It works the same way as a household refrigerator. Widespread adoption of atmospheric water generators will cool the atmosphere and make it less humid. As a result, the strength of hurricanes and storms will decrease, and the amount of extreme precipitation will be reduced. This will save millions of lives and prevent multi-billion-dollar losses. Atmospheric water generator technology is vital for everyone's survival, but it has a weak point: energy consumption. Manufacturers are scratching their heads on how to make their systems more cost-effective and economically rational. They install solar panels on them. This works for small atmospheric water generators, but on an industrial scale during periods of global climate change, this solution is not efficient enough and sometimes too vulnerable. We need an alternative, powerful, environmentally friendly, and most importantly, inexpensive source of energy.
And what do? We don't really do anything else if you think about it. We convert kinetic energy into electrical power. And how do we do that? By simply developing a converter based on a material that has only been around for a few decades. A few years, you might say. It's called graphene. We find that we have different materials with two different vibration behaviors. Silicon and 100 times stronger vibrating graphene. And because of the different vibration behaviors of these materials, and only because of that, this technology works. That is called two-dimensional material. And we have this three-dimensional material behind and in front. And the two-dimensional material tries to move and releases impulses. And then we're already back to quite normal physics. What physicists call oblique scattering as far as electrons are concerned. And then it's just a matter of directing electrons in one direction. To do that, without being too technical right now, surfaces are being doped. The result is that electrons start to flow in one direction, and that means electricity. And this way of generating energy through the vibrational behavior of carbon, which is a patented process, is a so-called graphene sandwich. The correct term would be multi-layered graphene microvibration energy cell. Yes, of course, that's a darn bulky term. We used to call it neutrino energy. We face a great deal of resistance because most people have said that they're crazy people who want to capture neutrinos. And I would like to once again and take this opportunity to explain to you and to all listeners and viewers very clearly. We're not capturing neutrinos. The neutrinos practically penetrate the bodies. We don't capture them. Nevertheless, neutrinos do play a role. We know that today. They give a small impulse at the atomic nucleus, but we use the whole oscillation range. So we use the whole non-visible range of radiation. To initiate the process of cleaning the ocean on a global scale, you must get all the water solely from the atmosphere. Today, even for water generator manufacturers, a task of this scale may seem too ambitious. However, once they have an alternate source of energy in their hands, the widespread use of atmospheric water generators on a planetary scale will be quickly implemented.
The first step to take is to fully transition to atmospheric water generators and stop drawing water from the surface and underground sources. Atmospheric water generators can produce sufficient amounts of water needed for both drinking and industrial purposes. They will be of vital importance in conditions of water crisis and will ensure the sustainability of the water supply. The second step is to reconstruct sewage systems. Water must not be discharged into open water bodies. It should be directed into the soil purified, and only after undergoing natural final purification through soil layers should it reach water bodies. Extracting water from the atmosphere by 70% solves the problem of exacerbating climatic phenomena, whereas wastewater treatment solves it by another 30%. This will enable several of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals to be fully achieved at once. The third important step is the introduction of fuel-free generators, FFGs, which, due to their energy intensity, are needed to provide atmospheric water generators with the necessary and affordable energy. Moisture for water generation systems must be replenished from natural sources, and this requires the elimination of open reservoirs. It is the introduction of FFGs that will reduce dependence on hydroelectric power and will allow dams to be opened. Restoring rivers to their original channels and revival of their natural flows will eliminate stagnant water and revitalize ecosystems. These measures will also make it possible to achieve a number of the Sustainable Development Goals adopted by the UN General Assembly. These are the priority steps towards saving the planet. If they are implemented, we will see tangible results within 2 to 3 years. However, it's important to understand that the process of climate change is accelerating, and we won't be able to stop it instantly. Therefore, in the first year, the situation may aggravate slightly, but approximately 8 to 14 months later, everything will begin to improve. In 5 to 8 years, we will see how much the water will cleanse. This will restore the ocean's function of cooling the planet. Floods, droughts, abnormal winds, and temperature fluctuations will disappear. The climate will become a lot milder and more predictable. Thus, thanks to implementation of atmospheric water generators, we will gain additional time to develop a shield that will protect our planet from external cosmic impact.
Dear descendants, you're now standing on the edge of a cliff, watching the catastrophe approaching. Yet, you're doing nothing. And this is at a time when you already have the necessary technologies. Thanks to the atmospheric water generators, you can really buy the time scientists need to stop climate disasters and save the Earth for future generations. This is a global project, one of the key puzzle pieces in saving the world.